Welcome, my friends, back to Beyond the Well, where forgotten histories and untold legends awaken. I never expected to find that well, hidden deep in the woods behind my house. But when I touched its sacred water, I saw more than my own reflection. I saw another world. A world shaped by light and shadow, by heroes and tyrants, by choices that still echo through time. Join me as I uncover the stories of Aldarion that lie beyond the well. Mohrvanna, Harbinger of Destruction, Episode 1, The Fall of the Abbey. The village of Vaelorin lay tucked between the whispering forest of the Emberlin and the sun-dappled highlands of the east. In autumn, its thatched roofs were crowned with fire-colored leaves, and its winding paths blanketed the scent of cedar, smoke, and harvest grain. But above all else, the village was known for its Abbey, Coy'era's Light, a small sanctuary devoted to Elyon, the god of warmth, mercy, and light. At the heart of it knelt Aeris Coy'era. She was young, barely more than 20, but already she carried herself with the weight of the sacred. Her voice, soft as morning rain, recited prayers passed down through thousands of years of breath. Her eyes were a green, vivid like spring's first bloom, and her fingers moved with practiced grace across the altar cloth as she trimmed wicks and folded linens. The bell tower rang once, low and slow, signaling the first light. Aeris arose. The morning blessing had been given. Her sisters moved quietly behind her, humming hymns, preparing for the day's sacred work. Today marked the festival of the Flame-Bearer's Mercy, the final celebration of the harvest season. Children would bring bundles of wheat to be blessed. Elders would lay candles at the altar for past loved ones. At dusk, all would gather under lanterns strung from elm to elm, and they would dance. Outside, she helped lay fresh garlands of vine and fruit along the perimeter stones. Little ones from the village skipped behind her, baskets bouncing in their arms. "Sister Aeris," one of the boys called, breathless, "can we help with holy fire today?" She smiled and tousled his hair. "Only if your hands are clean and your heart is quiet." He grinned and wiped his hand on his tunic. Laughter drifted like music across the field, and the sun warmed the ancient stone of the abbey. For a moment, the world was still, as it always had been. But not all hearts were quiet. By midday, word reached the abbey. Durambach's scouts had been spotted along the northern border of the trails. Raiders from the mountains, long considered fractured and broken. It had been years since they posed a serious threat. The village reeve, old Master Belwyn, reassured everyone. "They are weeks away, even if they're coming," he said with a dismissive wave. "We'll not cancel a sacred festival over ghost stories." Aeris had stood beside him in silence, but her knuckles were pale as she gripped the sleeves of her robe. That night, beneath the stars, the Abbey's main hall was lit with hundreds of candles. Warmth filled the space as Aeris offered prayers over bundles of wheat. Children's drawings and carvings of Elyon made by calloused hands. The villagers sang, they wept, they gave thanks. And just beyond the trees, night watched, waiting. They came not with a roar, but with a hiss. In the hours before dawn, even when the animals were still asleep, the Durambach raiders descended from the hills, moving like wolves, fast, coordinated, silent. Their faces were marked in ash and oil. They did not shout, they did not give warning. There were no horns, no banners, just fire. Aeris awoke to the scent of smoke. At first, she thought it was incense, perhaps a sister praying early. But then, a scream pierced the morning, and she knew. "Raiders! Raiders!" she shouted. "Get to the trees!" From the bell tower, the watchman rang the alarm twice, then a third time before his voice was cut short. Aeris ran barefoot through the garden, her robe whipping behind her, eyes wide with disbelief. A mother and child darted past her, the mother sobbing and the child silent. Behind them, torches lit the far edges of the Abbey wall. The flames moved fast. Too fast. She turned, heart pounding, and bolted for the sanctuary. She would do all she could to protect it. The grand doors were still open. She pushed inside and slammed them shut behind her, latching the heavy crossbeam with shaking arms. The sanctuary was cool, dim, and filled with the glow of untouched candles. She stumbled towards the altar, still adorned from the night's celebration. She reached beneath it and retrieved a small pendant, a sunburst of gold with blue crystal at its center, the symbol of Elyon. She clutched it to her chest, eyes closed. "Father of light," she whispered, "be with us now. Shield your children." A thud. Then another. The door shook. The crossbeams groaned. Aeris backed away, her breath ragged. The doors didn't splinter, not yet, but a side passage, one rarely used, burst open, and a single figure stood in the smoke. He was not a warrior, not armored like the ones who had cut through the village. He wore leathers dark and stained, and his blade was not drawn. A curved axe hung at his side unused. He looked at her, saw fear, pale skin, the way she clutched the pendant, and something in his expression darkened. Aeris backed against the altar, frozen, her voice gone. He stepped forward. The pendant fell from her fingers, and the candlelight flickered. Aeris stumbled from the sanctuary hours later, the door broken, the altar overturned. Blood stained the hem of her robe. Her hands, once folded in prayer, now hung limp at her side. The pendant of Elyon was gone. Behind her, the Abbey burned. Pages and pages of scripture fluttered through the air like torn wings. The stained glass windows melted inward, the light of the flames painting the faces of the angels with fire. She did not cry. She did not scream. She walked barefoot through the garden path, now trampled and stained, and vanished into the trees. The last daughter of the Coy'era line. The smoke from the Abbey smoldered for 3 days. The winds from the highlands carried the scent of burnt parchment and charred wood across the village of Vaelorin like a curse that would not lift. What had once been a sanctuary of light now stood blackened, gutted, and lifeless, a monument to desecration. The bell tower had collapsed inward, its once reverent chime now forever silenced. In the shadow of this ruin, Aeris Coy'era stood, her once immaculate robes crusted with dried blood and ash. Her hair, once golden and kept beneath ceremonial veils, hung tangled and dull. The villagers gathered, not with flowers or blankets or comfort, but with suspicion, with murmured prayers and downturned eyes. None would meet her gaze. None would touch her. Only one figure, Elder Maveth, stepped forward, an old man whose voice had once taught her the songs of Elyon, whose hands had laid blessings upon her brow when she was named a sister of the light. But now his voice was dry, his eyes were hard. "You were alone when they came?" he asked, not unkindly, but with distance. She nodded. "And you survived?" Another nod. Her voice had not returned. His silence was telling. The others whispered, not quietly, not behind closed doors, in circles around the fire. They questioned her purity, her survival, the look in her eyes. "No one else was taken from the Abbey alive," they'd say. "She walked away from the smoke untouched. Maybe it's a sign. Elyon has turned against her." Aeris had stood still and taken it all. Finally, at dusk on the 4th day, a judgment was pronounced. "You carry a stain," Maveth said, his voice like brittle leaves. "Whether of the flesh or the soul, it's unclear, but the light cannot abide uncertainty." He couldn't even speak the words pregnancy. "You must go, for the safety of the village and the sanctity of our faith." She tried to plead, but her voice cracked on dried lips. "You may take a cloak, a skin of water, and whatever relic you can carry. Nothing more." And just like that, the path of exile opened before her. She left in silence. No farewell, no glance over her shoulder, only the whisper of the village gates creaking shut behind her. The road was crueler than the judgment. Days stretched into weeks. Aeris wandered through the forest paths and the stony highland trails, surviving off roots and spring water, huddling behind trees when the rains came. The pendant of Elyon, once worn between her palms, now felt like a burden, cold and inert. Her hands shook with fever. She whispered prayers at first, but by the third week she simply muttered sounds, syllables half-remembered from the Abbey. Her voice cracked and thin. Her belly grew heavier. The child was coming. It was no longer a theory or a sham. It was real. With every flutter beneath her ribs, the child reminded her of that single moment in the sanctuary, where mercy had not come, where no one had answered. Not Elyon, not the elders, no one. She crossed rivers, waded through marshlands, scavenged from abandoned camps. Her skin blistered in the sun and split in the cold. Still, she walked, until one morning she could walk no farther. She collapsed at the edge of a trade road outside the walled city of Delvin's Reach, where the guards found her, ragged, gaunt, and wild eyes with fevered brow. She had tried to pray when they approached, reaching for her pendant, but the guards only laughed. "Vagrant, no papers, no coin." They took her in chains. The prison cell reeked of mildew, sweat, and something fouler still. There was no light, save a flickering torch in the hall, casting faint shadows between the rusted iron bars. Rats darted through the straw, and Aeris lay there, curled on her bed, her hands bound and her body hollowed by weeks of hunger. She had been imprisoned for trespassing and suspected theft, though she had taken nothing, owned nothing, wanted nothing but shelter and food. Her body betrayed her in that moment. Labor began. No midwife came. Her cries echoed through the stone like something primal, something ancient. The guards ignored her. One cursed her for the noise, and the rest simply let her suffer. The contractions came like waves crashing against stone. She screamed until her voice broke into sobs. Blood pooled beneath her knees. She reached for anything, help, comfort, death. But no answer came, only a whisper. It came from the corner of the cell where no voice should have been. "You're not alone." Aeris froze, gasping. "Elyon?" Her voice cracked. "You're never truly alone." The voice was neither man nor woman. It was both and neither. It was in her head, and also just behind her ears. "Elyon abandoned you," it said softly, almost sweetly. "But I have not." "No," she croaked. "Yes," the whisper said. "But do not fear, you will live, and so will she." "She?" Another scream tore through her. She gritted her teeth, bit down on her own tongue. "The child is yours, but also mine." "No," Aeris whispered. "No more taking, no more stealing what's sacred." "We shall see," the voice echoed in her mind. "You offered yourself to a false god who leaves followers to suffer. Now at the threshold of death, you will give her to me, to be bound in shadow." "Never, never, Elyon, please." The voice rumbled low in protest, then receded in a wicked, low laugh. The other prisoners and guards only saw a deranged woman muttering to herself in the woeful throes of what they saw as imminent death. Aeris fell forward, her arms weak, body limp, and then a cry, sharp, piercing, and alive. The child lay in the straw, her tiny fists clenched, her eyes wide open. Eyes that shimmered not like her mother's green, but a glint of silver and violet, colors that had no place in this world. Eyes that reflected back at Aeris, not innocence, but awareness. Aeris looked at her daughter, chest heaving. The candle in the hallway flickered once, and in the child's eyes, something flickered back. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for coming with me beyond the well. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking, following, or subscribing. And if you have a moment, I would love a review. Your feedback truly makes a difference. If you want to dive deeper into the well, visit beyondthewell.net for show notes, transcripts, maps, character descriptions, and much, much more. And until next time, keep seeking, keep dreaming, and keep telling your story.